Hello, everyone. Good morning. It's Tuesday. This is the first show of the week. Yesterday was a crazy day. Maybe we'll talk about why here at Silicon Slopes. We had a number of things happening. We had an event for Ukraine. You ever heard of that country?
Recently.
Yeah, that country's been in the news a bit, once or twice. We had an event there, and then we also had a nice little event with Governor Mike Leavitt, former Governor Mike Leavitt, a great man. In my opinion, the father of Silicon Slopes. Before we get into all of that and who our guest is, today's show is brought to you by Domopalooza. Go to domo.com/Domopalooza. This is an incredible event. You will not want to miss it. Here is everything that happens. Look at this. It's a party, actually, is what it is. It's just an insane party.
Wow.
And I think you'll enjoy it if you go. It's domo.com/Domopalooza. Domo.com/Domopalooza. All right. So before we talk about anything else, let's introduce our guest, Garrett.
We have with us Henry Ammar, who is a human behavior expert, which means you've got your work cut out for you.
Yeah.
You could have stopped at human.
True.
Well,
the
he
most
is that.
real answer.
but an expert in studying the behavior of other humans.
Mm-hmm.
There's only about 8 billion of us, so
That's it.
Yeah.
Not too many.
from what I've heard, nobody's the same. So
Yeah.
So tell us what you do.
Man, I've been obsessed since 17 years old. I'll kind of give you a backstory. Grew up, you run it with so much insecurity in your life as a younger person, but I had so much fear and I felt so caged. Freedom's a big value for me. One of my values is have the inner freedom to be and do everything that I was born to do. But there was always this insecurity. My nickname used to be Passive. I used to be really scared what people thought about me. I wouldn't say how I really felt about things. And one day someone put a book in front of me at 17 and it had questions at the end of the first chapter. I'll tell you the book. I don't really share it, but it was a Dr. Phil book at 17 years old. You're like, And I was like, I wouldn't probably read this, but I'm flipping through and life has a way of like waking you up. And I'm reading the questions. I was like, if I could change, I could change. I could be and I could become what I want to. And I just wanted to learn about fears and emotions and psychology and peak performance and trauma and all the things. Like I got obsessed, subconscious mind. And so I literally got obsessed from that day. And I hadn't put books down. I went to every seminar, every certification, everything I could study. I studied successful people. I studied people that were confident, people that weren't, And so, and at the same time, I was in a boy band back in the day.
What?
I know. I look
You
like
buried
I'm still.
the lead.
I look like I'm still in a boy band sometimes because of my style.
Break out and dance, dude. Let's
Hey, I'll teach you a dance. We could
let's
start
get a choreographed dance going after the show.
The Silicon
How cool would that be?
Slopes boy band, 2.0. I think starring Clint and Garrett, and I'll just be the background singer. But I realized the power of pop culture too, because we'd be on these stages opening for these artists, and I remember we were in Puerto Rico. It was 19,000 people, and I'm speaking, and they're cheering after everything you say, and I'm like, the power of a microphone and the power of pop culture. And then I had gone through some major breakthroughs, and I was like, the world needs to understand this, because if I could change, anybody could change. And so I started realizing there's a convergence of the power of merging popular culture with human wellness, emotional wellness, human empowerment, and true principles. Because I'm a hyper nerd. Like I'm at the gym listening to neuroscientists. Like that's me. My wife's like, why are you taking notes? I'm like, I'm working my brain. But so throughout my journey, I'm obsessed with helping people in that sense of the word, of helping people really understand their inner workings and alleviate themselves from suffering, but liberating themselves to be everything they're born. And I do partnerships with huge, like say music festivals. We did a project with Yoko Ono and this music festival to promote peace in former Yugoslavia. And we did this project with the United Nations World Food Program and a music festival and got it to 20 million people. So my thing is you go where people are and you speak the language of the people, because everybody's suffering or in some way, shape or form. And we live in a world where, mental health awareness is rising. Initiatives are rising. More money is being spent. More apps are coming out, but suicide rates are still rising.
Right.
So what's the thing? What's the problem? And if you go upstream to Harvard or go to these people that understand trauma and the nervous system and how we operate. And this goes in business too. There are ways to help alleviate the tension within ourselves, but awareness is not enough. We need real principles to do that. So what I do in a nutshell is, yes, I have my personal brand and I share that. I just got back from Atlanta speaking to a huge entrepreneurship conference. But also I merge it with pop culture. So we're doing some really cool stuff in the next couple of years that I will impact a lot of people. And we're partnering with some very successful names, influential names. But my thing is, man, I just love to help people. And this is my calling, in life.
That's incredible. Hey, here's your website right here. Look at that.
That guy right there.
So you touched on something there that I've been thinking about a lot, and I think our community has been thinking about a lot, and that is around the mental health awareness thing.
Mm-hmm.
We are getting a lot better in our community, particularly the past few years, at talking about it.
Yep.
And even doing events and even launching initiatives. There's a number of groups that have come out and I think are doing incredible work and trying to figure out how do we solve this problem. But it does seem like fundamentally we're not making a difference.
Yep.
Yet.
How
do we do that?
That is the golden question, man, because I love there is such a need, especially you look at Utah by itself, right? I'm sure you get listeners from all over the world, but Utah in and of itself,
mostly just Spanish Fork to Provo is really, that's kind of our audience.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I just spoke to a bunch of youth in Orem, and 2 hours, I was scheduled to speak to them anyway, but 2 hours before I get a call from their leader, and he said, "Hey, I just want you to know, you have a lot more youth coming because their best friend committed suicide." And so I was like, okay. So I was like, well, divinely or whatever people believe, I felt like, okay, I was this is what I've been doing for a long time. I was the right person to be there. But we created such a safe place for them to feel their emotions and to be. And you had all these youth just crying and sharing and talking about, how do I handle these big emotions? How do I get out of despair and hopelessness and allow myself to feel the emotions and lovingly walk myself back home? And so there is a huge thing out here. Everybody listening, there's something that we all struggle with on the inside. I've been doing this work for 26 years and I just had a massive breakthrough 2 months ago. Massive. It's going to change my whole life, And so, and so for me, the understanding of, I'll start here. Sorry, you asked a question and my mind's like, yes. That's why we're really in my opinion, really bring some of the most leading experts to Utah. I have people on the board that are straight out of the top trauma healers in the world, the top experts in the world. I'm like, let's bring it and make it really practical in a condensed place and prove the model and start scaling it. But every behavior we have, there's a doctor named Stephen Porges. It's called the polyvagal theory. Highly recommend anybody just check it out. He said, and this some people might raise a question mark to this, but he said there's no such thing as bad behaviors, only adaptive ones. Right? And let me explain that from my story. My nickname was Passive. Or let me explain it from a business standpoint. So there was a point in my life where no matter what I did, I would self-sabotage. Right? I would hit a certain level of income. I would hit a certain level of success. And I would just keep going. It's like a thermostat, right? I kept going to the same degree temperature. And I was a director of investments for this $2 billion real estate development and finance company in LA. And I get a call from one of the top guys in there, and he goes, and we were just having a conversation. He goes, you could be getting paid 3 times more than you're getting paid for the role you have. And I was like, yeah, it's cool. When it comes, it'll just come to me. He's like, why don't you ask and see what's possible for you? And I love to be, I call it lovingly self-aware. I think we need radical honesty and radical love together, right? And most of us tell ourselves enough truth to be uncomfortable, but not enough truth to be free. So I'm like, yeah, I could. But I was like, what's the root? Why do I resist going in and getting my value for what value I bring to the company? We just bought a $200 million building. We just did all these things, and I helped lead the acquisition. So I went and I did this work internally, and I realized that I had a belief that if I was successful, it would hurt the relationship with my sister, and I valued love over money. So whenever I would reach a certain amount of success, I would just sabotage it. So I went and I had a conversation with my sister. I worked it out. I did all the inner work myself, A week later, that was the first time I broke 6 figures and more. First time, a week later, after my nervous system felt safe enough to be successful. Some of us don't know if we feel safe enough to be successful. Some of us are afraid of failure. Some of us, fear has so many different faces. Worrying what people think about you, anxiety, fear of what people think, fear of success, fear of failure, right? Perfectionism, inauthenticity, sabotaging, procrastination. Procrastinators, you're not a procrastinator. There's a fear. It's a self-protection mechanism. So what all fear means is your nervous system feels unsafe. And so if we want to talk about it, even from a business standpoint, not just for the emotional wellness of our employees, but also for the bottom line. Because if people come in and their inner limitations are broken because they understand how to navigate fears and emotions, then everybody's going to it's going to help the interpersonal relationships. Because if we're working together and I'm in survival mode and you're in survival mode, then we're living in fear. And how can you really optimize if you're just trying to protect? How do you play offense if you're primarily playing defense? Right? And so this inner work that we're talking about is first and foremost for the health, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, and physically, because your mental and emotional health has an impact on your physical health, right? That's first. And also the benefit of it for Silicon Slopes, for these companies that are here, the benefit is not just, of course, first is love your employees and love yourself, executives, leaders, because a lot of times we're so good at giving and suck at receiving in this space. But if we allow ourselves to receive and give ourselves a loving, compassionate curiosity, as Dr. Gabor Mate says, like, it's not only going to bless and benefit your life, it's going to benefit your families, because you're not going to go home in a survival state, and it's going to benefit your bottom line. And I'll wrap it up with this, and we can get to your question. Sorry, I went on this thing because I feel so passionate about it. We have something called neuroception, which is your subconscious mind is always looking for cues of safety or danger. Right? So if I walk in a room and Clint, you're in a stress response or work, and someone's in a stress response, I'm like, oh, they're in a fear-based response. I must be on the lookout too. My nervous system goes on. Now you have this fear cycle. And now everybody's operating out of this sense of survival. You're either going to get burnout or you're going to get bad health or something's going to come up, right? And so if we can learn to regulate our emotions, we can learn to have emotional mastery. We can learn, and this is where the real trick is, to answer your question. I think it's threefold. How do you resolve emotions from your past? Because all the stuff we're feeling isn't about what's happening now. It's about something inside of us that has reached a state of overwhelm, or something in our nervous system that keeps us hypervigilant to look around for safety. And we run these patterns that limit us. But emotions aren't supposed to be dictators. They're messengers. Fears aren't dictators. They're messengers. Limits aren't dictators. They're messengers. So if we can look inward with compassion and love rather than beating ourselves up, because you can't beat yourself up into healing. You can't hate yourself into loving yourself. But the foundation is, how do you become so lovingly curious about what you need and know that it's safe to open up and have a real, honest conversation to work through those unresolved emotions inside of you, because it will change every single thing in your life. And if you don't, we're going to look back and say, shoot, man, I was running patterns and I didn't live in my agency.
The safe to open up, I think, requires 2 parties, right? Which is why there needs to be a lot of education or re-education.
Yeah.
Because if you play that, and then you open up and it's met with resentment or confusion or a closed door,
right?
Then you might have all done that for nothing, or you have to start over again. But how do you kind of marry the marketplace?
You don't trust geometry to a 5-year-old, right? Not everybody. I have my second TEDx talk is on boundaries, and I talk about boundaries being more proximity than a yes or a no, right? I have my inner circle, and I have very clear values. It's someone that can handle and hold space, because the problem comes when we have someone in our inner circle that maybe needs to be one tier out, right? I use the metaphor of a porcupine, and there's a story by Arthur Schopenhauer that says there's these porcupines in this winter, and they're so cold they come together, but they poke each other and they hurt each other. Then they go too far, now they're freezing, but they go back and forth until they find the optimal space, and where they could stay warm with each other, yet not hurt each other. And they're called love-based boundaries. And so what we do sometimes is we let people in and we expect people that don't have the capacity to handle our emotions. So we trust them with something that they're not capable of handling. And we get mad at them and mad at ourselves for trusting them, when it's like, I wouldn't get mad at a 5-year-old for not knowing the geometric equation. I just have to let people be where they're at and go find people that could, whether it's a therapist or a coach or somebody, and or my group of friends. I have very clear value systems, and I have, and I could love everybody based on proximity. And proximity, love-based boundaries is more about how much, not yes or no. So how much resource, time, energy, how much information will I give you? How much will I open up to you? I have my people in business that I open up to that aren't my emotional people. I have my people that are my emotional people. I'm like, oof, I hit a wall, man. And I call them. So it's understanding what you need and what capacity people have to carry that. And not everybody does.
So how does, like, and I know that there's no silver bullet because we've figured this out, over the past few years. But how does a community of well-intentioned folks who want to make a difference and want to prevent another, if we're just being blunt about it, prevent another suicide in the community, and also just help with the mental health of the overall community and people who are in it, what should we be doing?
Yep.
Are we doing too much? Are we doing too little? Are we doing, is all of our efforts going in the right place, the wrong place? Where should these efforts be going?
Yeah, I would say we need to add something to it because we're doing so much good. We're bringing people together. I won't say what event it is, but I went to an event and it was around mental health. This was a while back. And I was sitting there and I was hearing people talk and everyone was sharing their story. And then we were done. And I was like, what do we do? We didn't tell anybody what to do. People were just, it was good because they felt seen, which is important, that I'm not alone. That's huge. Excuse me. But what are we doing? And so I think the best thing we could do initially first is become trauma informed. Understand the nervous system. Understand why people do what they do. Because when we understand it, we approach it with so much more compassion. I think the problem is we focus on behavior so much. Okay, morning routine, do this, do this, do this. But how many times have you tried to do something, but on the inside you still feel activated? And unless we understand how to, I say you need 3 things. Well, phase 1, there's 4 phases, but the last 3 are really important. The phase 1 is truly loving self-awareness, a true identification of what's coming up for you. But it has to be done with compassion and love, because if we understand that our body's just trying to keep us safe and connected, rather than how many people listening or watching or us, when you discover something you don't like about yourself, what's the first thing you do? You beat yourself up, or you're mad at yourself, or you should yourself. You should on yourself, right? I should be doing this. I shouldn't be this. I shouldn't be this. But let's just for 1 second imagine an inner child. When something happened to you as a child, what did we want as children? Like, what would you say as children you really wanted? What are the things you really wanted?
To play outside.
To play outside, and what else did you want?
Freedom.
Freedom. What else?
Sports.
Just like a stick I could play with all day.
A stick you could play with. So you wanted fun. You wanted freedom. You wanted acceptance and safety.
Yep.
You wanted love, right? You wanted to feel that you were loved no matter what, like even when you messed up, right? That's like a healthier upbringing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what's interesting is the way that trauma works, it's an overwhelming life experience. Whenever we have a heightened emotional experience in our life, our body remembers it. I'm going to give you an example, and then I'll come back to this point. Trying to think of which example to bring, but there was a lady, she was 40, high up at a bank in California, VP. And she came up to me, and when she shook my hand, she locked her arm out all the way. And I was like, oof, I'm going to have to build a lot of rapport with her. She's like, I really want help. But she went, boom. I was like, okay, walls, that's okay. She doesn't feel safe. It's okay. That's your number one job, is to create safety among, the other person. And eventually we built enough rapport where she goes, Henry, no matter what I do, I feel like a failure. And she's like, I've become successful. She's a great mom, all these things. And so we did this process. There's some really cool work you can do to actually go back to root causes and things like that. And it turns out, and long story just for the point of it, when she was younger, her father grabbed her by the arm, and her perception was he moved her and said, "You failed me." So if she's looking for safety and connection as kids, that's what we want the most, safety and connection, right? When she failed, she felt like she lost connection with her caretaker, which made her less safe. So what did she decide, and what turned into a belief at that moment? I cannot fail. So what did her mind begin to look for? All ways that she was failing, so she wouldn't fail, so she could always stay safe and connected in the world. So for 36 years of her life, since she's a kid, right, she has this experience of like, I need to look for failure, because if I don't, then I'm not safe or I'm not connected. You're going to find what you look for. If I told you don't think of a purple tree, what are you going to think of first?
Purple tree.
Yeah. So if I think don't fail, what am I going to think of? Failure. So I'm gonna get all the different confirmations of where I'm failing in life. So her mind was conditioned as a kid to look for all the ways she was failing. And so it was a survival mechanism. And so as we understand that everything we do is just adaptive to keep us safe and connected, sure, like it may not be productive now, but as a 4-year-old, that's what she learned. So going back in phase 1 is getting that identification. Then the last 3 phases is resolving those past emotions and belief systems, going inward with compassion and doing the inner work to resolve those unresolved emotions. She had unresolved emotions. After we were done with the process, it was phenomenal. She looked in the mirror. She didn't even recognize herself. Her skin was leathery. And afterwards, she's like, I felt like I got a facelift. And it's crazy how the body stores emotion. Whenever you feel an emotion, where do you feel it? In your body. So it's healing and resolving the past. It's really learning emotional mastery in this moment, learning how to be with your emotions, not in them. Have emotions, don't let them have you. And then how do you reprogram the subconscious mind of yours to the identity and the belief system that is conducive to the career, the impact, the family, the self-love, the confidence, the person you want. The person sitting in front of you is not the person that you would have seen 26 years ago. It took work. I went from being passive to being on stages in front of 35,000 people, ripping it. And that's why I'm here, because I feel like if life could do this for me, if God could do it for me, or whatever you believe, if these principles can do it for you, for me, I seriously think anybody could do it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. You said a few things there. One, it seems like we're trying to overcome the trauma of our childhood throughout our adult lives.
Mm-hmm.
And that's basically what the work is.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I think that's really interesting, and I probably agree with that too. I just want to make sure. Did you just come up with "should yourself"? That was incredible.
No, someone else. A lot of people have said it. Tony Robbins said it.
You
A bunch of other people
that.
said it.
I was like, oh my gosh, dude,
Shit all
write
over
a book.
themselves.
Yeah, write a book called "Should." That's incredible. So what? I mean, how do we? Again, I just want to bring it back to the community aspect, because I'm not. It's top of mind, and it's something that our organization is thinking about a lot. How do we as a community help people overcome their childhood trauma, if that is kind of the main source of where this comes from?
Yeah. It's got to be experiential, not cognitive. Right? A lot of times we say, okay, well, I want you to think differently so you could feel differently. Like if that was the case, we would be killing it in life. Because how many people go do their affirmations and your mind's telling you BS? That's not true. I'm awesome. I'm great. And your mind's like, no, you're not. What are you talking about? Or sometimes we have emotional override, which is like, no, things are great. And you see people smiling. And in Utah, Happy Valley, right? Put a smile on your face and just keep going. You're going to be fine. Or spiritual override. God's got it. I'm good. Like, yes. And the principle of not just thinking right, but going inward and understanding the operating system. And so to make it really practical, because I know that's what you really want. First is becoming trauma informed as a leadership and doing and understanding how the nervous system operates and what it takes to actually resolve unresolved emotions. It's interesting because the etymology of the word healing is actually wholeness. And in Utah, there's a lot of people that are, believe in Jesus. So what did Jesus say? I will make you whole, right? And depending on who you study, there's a lot of modalities that do parts work. Internal family systems is great. a lot of parts work. But when I talked about that little kid that comes up, if you think of the word react, it's react, to act again. So we're acting the same thing over and over again. Have you ever seen a grown man throw a tantrum like he's 9?
Yeah, Garrett does it every day.
Perfect. Then I could usually tell at what age someone has unhealed trauma by the age they act when they're activated.
Mm.
I'm like, oh, interesting. My dad threw a tantrum like he was 9. My dad at 9 years old lost his father, started working full time, started smoking, and started drinking at 9.
Whoa.
Right? And so when my father would get upset, he would do that. But
Those were his prime years.
yeah, for sure. But think about this. Every trigger shows you where you're not free, but every trigger shows you where you can be free. Emotions can lead you to captivity, or emotions can lead you to your freedom. And this is where the work starts. Where instead of running from emotions, what if we could build a community that can not only hold space for emotions and it lets you be open and honest and safe with your emotions, where we could develop capacity, where we know that one of my favorite quotes is, every form of communication is a cry for help or an act of love.
Mm.
So when someone's activated, when someone's in fear, even anger, I don't feel safe. Avoidance, I'm not doing the work. You don't feel safe doing the work. I'm procrastinating. I'm not going after my dream. I'm not stepping into leadership. You don't feel safe doing it. Because if you hadn't, we have to expect resistance to go to the new level. If you didn't have resistance, you would already be there.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so when we think about resistance and emotions, if we can expect people to feel resistance, expect them to come in and all those stored and unresolved and feelings that they buried alive that never died, when they come, they're probably going to show up. But a lot of us don't know that we could handle other people's emotions because we can barely handle our own. So what if we learned emotional mastery? What if people came in and we actually were able to take them to the process of first building the foundation of without being cliche, self-love? Because again, you can't, if Garrett and I were walking down the street, right? Or us three were walking down the street and this guy was walking with us, and Clint, you told this guy, man, you know what I realized? Silicon slopes, I think I could grow it even more, but I feel this resistance and I feel this like fear. And the guy's like, man, that's so stupid, man. You shouldn't be doing that. Shitting, right?
Mm-hmm.
You shouldn't be doing that. And then you're like, man, you know what I realized with my family? Like when I go home, I'm really activated and I just kind of like word vomit and emotionally vomit on my wife, and she can't really handle it. I can't believe it, man. You shouldn't be doing that. How long until you stop telling that person the full truth?
Yeah, I see what you're saying there.
And most of us do that to ourselves, so we don't get ourselves to the full truth to be free. We stop in the middle of it. We think that that's the end of it, but we don't recognize that if we just lovingly push through it with a great community surrounding it and these principles. And so going back to embodiment, not cognitive, we need to create experiences for people to feel that love, to feel that healing, to integrate their parts, to learn how to navigate all these different emotions they're feeling without rejecting themselves, but actually bringing them in and bringing them practical principles. One of the things we're working on to bring here, it's funny, I got offered millions of dollars to do it in another state, but I keep feeling, for me, it's God saying, you need to do it in Utah first. So I work with music festivals internationally. We do these really cool campaigns, hundreds of thousands of people in person. And we've tested a lot of stuff out internationally, and to see what are people really receptive to in the mainstream. How do you speak the language of the people? Because scientists know how to help heal trauma. There's a guy named Dr. Frank Anderson in my board who is brilliant. He wrote a book called Transcending Trauma. He said to me, he goes, we know how to heal trauma, but we'll sit there and talk science with all the scientists, but it's not really mainstream yet to help people understand how to navigate their emotions. How to understand that a lot of us are just in freeze mode or hopelessness, because by the time you get to a state of overwhelm, that's where those suicidal ideations come in, because your body feels like, I just can't handle it anymore. I don't know if I have hope. I feel so much shame for what I've done in my past. Where if we could just help people understand that's a survival mechanism and there is hope, and then walk them back home through, because you cross the emotions you hid to actually resolve them. But a lot of us are big feelers here. And if you feel really, really big, it's extremely overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just like, I'd rather not open up that door because I don't know if I could handle it. Well, we could be sensitive and strong. you know, and a lot of times we think that we can't handle it. That's why I think having the right support system is important. Having someone that understands the nervous system is really important to teach and go through processes. Something I really want to do. That festival we want to do is we're actually going to create experiences with technology, with activations from the stage, outside of the stage, giving people practical resources, guided processes that you could do. I have some guided processes. I mean, I can probably send a link or, you know, if you go to my website, I think there's free resources, but we're going to create a lot more, but helping you get to the subconscious mind to teach your nervous system that you're safe today. You're safe right now and you can do it. But a lot of it's just a nervous system work. So what can we do? I think giving people the experience of safety, the experience of love, and not just the awareness cognitively, but like, let's show you the process of how to do it. And maybe we take people through these experiences at these events where they can go through. Look, some of us have been running patterns for 40 plus years, 50 years, 60 years, 25 years. And so love is patient, love is kind. And so it may take time, but I promise you that like there are real principles that you can do parts work, you can do nervous system work, you could do healing work. I think cognitive therapy is good, but not by itself.
Mm. You've mentioned processes a few times. I'm interested in this. So with that example you gave of fear was the motivating factor in her sadness. Mm-hmm. There's processes that you know can cause you to be happy, but they might take 10 years and you do the math and you're like, no. I'm interested in this example or others, like if the process can kind of be defined as like this will take a little while, it'll be medium, hard, or is it all ambiguous at the beginning and you're just going to follow the process until it's done?
Yeah, you know, I don't think it needs to take that long. I think things could take 7 weeks, 7 years, 70 years. The harder you hit the ball against the wall, the harder it comes back. Right? And if we can lovingly focus on, okay, what is it you truly need? Let's just stop ignoring ourselves. Let's stop pushing through things and let's go figure it out. You know, let's go find out what it is. And speaking with you just makes me think, man, we should do an event where we actually give people the experience of it so they know and give people resources and say, here's what it is. Right? You know, we could give practical things in like relationships or, you know, how to regulate your nervous system, right? There are ways to regulate your nervous system, like when you feel activated. And I'll give you guys a couple, like I call it proactive and in the moment regulation. We need to learn both. Proactive regulation is what are the things you're doing on a consistent basis that gets you ready for the day, ready for the game, right? Some people it's breathing, some people it's movement. Me, it's working out and I have my playlists I listen to. And in the moment regulation, are you aware? I literally have on my phone a calendar thing that pops up 4 times a day. It says pause, breathe deeply, and realign yourself. And it says connect to God for me. And so no matter what I'm doing, I mean, obviously I wouldn't do it here in the podcast, but if I see it when I get up, I'm like, I need to go to the restroom. I'll go check in with myself. And this is the magic. And it's cool because we're in Utah, so there's different ways to say it in whatever spiritual connotation you could have. But if I'm speaking from an IFS perspective, they call it the capital S self versus the lowercase s self, right? The capital S self is like your spirit self, the part of you that can hear your thoughts, the part of you that can feel your emotion, because I am not my emotion, I feel my emotion. I am not my thoughts, I hear my thoughts, right? There's a differentiation. Or if you're in the spiritual world, it's your spirit versus your body. Right? If we can do something and learn how to unblend from our emotions and be with our emotions, not in it, and learn how not to, because Tony Robbins says, what you resist will persist. And the mind that's not led by the soul, he said, will lead to your destruction. So how do we differentiate? Because we're so blended. So giving people the experience of differentiation, I have this inner circle program that I do, and we go into 3 months deep dive. Like we go hard. And one of the ladies in my group is from Canada. And this morning she messages me. She goes, I'm finally realizing what you're saying. She goes, I was going into freeze mode and I was so mad at myself for sitting on the couch. And she goes, for the first time I went back into that part of me, that feeling. And I had compassion, recognizing that I was just scared to get up and do something. I hit a state of overwhelm. And she goes, once I built the foundation of a loving understanding of like, oh, this is just my body and giving myself grace. She goes, it's fascinating to see how quickly things started to change for me. So as a starting point for everybody, like learn how to navigate your emotions and learn how to like recognize that all your behaviors are just trying to keep you safe and adaptive. So please learn how to build a new relationship with yourself. That your past, excuse me, your past does not have to equal your future unless you choose it. That I have this beautiful gift called choice. And that my fears are just a messenger saying, based on your history or based on your generations, this doesn't feel safe. And that I could recondition my nervous system by something they call disconfirming experiences. And by these processes, or by loving self-awareness, or by having the right support system and leader to walk me through this space back home. You know, I probably diverted from your original question because I just went with the flow of what was saying. But if you want to bring me back. No, that was great.
No, you mentioned Tony Robbins a couple of times. What has he meant to you?
It's interesting. He was the foundation of it. I think, bluntly, I think Tony has a lot of it. He doesn't really go back to the trauma side of it, but he has so many good things about how to take charge of your state now, how to be empowered now. He has these beautiful one-liners that really take you a lot deeper. His Date with Destiny program was super awesome. He's been a massively pivotal influence in my life. Like truly, like I coached for his Global Youth Leadership Summit. I've been to all of his events multiple times. I was a part of his crew when I was starting out because I wanted to see how he did it behind the scenes. I had 2 notebooks. One was for my personal growth. One was how did he do it that I want to learn. Because you want to learn from the best. You know, you want to model the best. And Tony's obviously the best. He's a legend. And a speaker I got to spend some time with this weekend, Les Brown. I know back in the day, he's old school. But as a kid, I would watch him and he would speak and like just get fired up. And so I got to speak with him. You know, we spoke at the same event this weekend. And it's been really cool to watch these people that have been doing it for so long and to say, wow, my thing is what's working. And I put it all in my toolbox. And 26 years of it is like, okay, this trauma-informed psychologist or healer or coach or whatever, these are the things I see that work. This peak performance strategy guys, obsess over them. This is what works. These guys, because we need it all, you know?
Yeah. Oh. We had Tony Robbins at Silicon Slopes Summit.
Yeah, he was awesome.
And were you there?
Yeah, I was there. So good.
Cool. We've never had a speaker like that.
Yeah.
You know, he gets everybody jumping around and doing like, normally it's like sit in your seats. We'll be done soon.
Yeah.
Hang on.
And he gets embodiment.
Yeah,
that's why he does it. He's like, you got to get it into your body because he knows if he just spoke to you, it wouldn't sit into your system as much.
Yeah, it's wild. And he went on for like over 4 hours, which again, we've never really done before. It's pretty fascinating stuff. Yeah. What drove you to be what you are now and to like, why do you think you were like studying Tony Robbins and this, what'd you say his name's Les?
Oh, Les Brown was a speaker. Yeah.
Like what made you like, study them as a kid?
You know, I needed it and I do. It's like, you know, we serve the people that we were, you know, the most. And so for me, again, freedom is such a value for me, and I don't want to be driven by fear. I say I don't want to live a fear-based life. I want to live a love-based life with presence, with power under control, with love. I want to be the best husband I could be to my wife, the best father for my children, the best leader in this world. I want to live everything I was born to live. So when I die, I could put it all on the table and say I give it back. And so that's what drives me. And I look. And I've learned this stuff and I know it works because I'm the mad scientist that puts it on himself first, says this works. Let me test it on a small group of people. That works. Let me go on a bigger group of people. So for the last 26 years, I've tested it and tried it. And for me, I'm so, I don't want to say sick of, but it hurts my soul. How many people are suffering, man? And how many people struggle not thinking there's any hope, thinking this is just what it is. I think I was just driven because I saw how it was affecting my family and me. And I feel like I wrestled so other people don't have to wrestle for 26 years. I can just give it to you in the most simple way that it works.
This will probably be one of the weirder questions of the morning. You you mentioned that you're a heavy feeler. Was that
Mhm.
accurate? I'm really interested in presidents and their feelings, right? Like the two that are currently running that have been in the White House. One's had family trauma and bad stuff, and then had to win elections and deal with all the lies and deceit and deceptions of politics. The other had to do that with politics and thousands, if not millions, of like cantankerous business dealings of deceit, deception, lies, bankruptcy, all of that. If you were in a room with those two and you had like 4 hours and they couldn't leave, would that be fun for you?
I would love it.
How would you go about it?
I would love it. I mean, we're all driven by something, and I don't know their lives personally. Obviously, I hear stories and I have opinions, but if I were to speak generally, it would be a genuine, compassionate concern, a question, understanding first, because like I'll give you an example. Right? This is crazy. So Frank on my podcast said, he's Frank Anderson, the incredible psychologist. He said, in order for me to feel loved growing up, I had to be the best. Like, that's what I thought. He's like, so I graduated top of my class at Harvard. It's benefited me to get me successful in a certain way, but it's also hurt me. And he said, and I was working on my book, and this will go back, I'll wrap to your question. And I was working on one of my books, and this phrase came to me. It said, your weaknesses are your strengths with fear attached to them. Right? Someone that's ambitious, that has fear attached to it, could be perfectionistic. Or that has, someone that is bold, but has fear attached to them, that could be aggressive. Right? And that boldness could be used for love, or that boldness could be used to hurt people. Right? Based off of what you say. And that boldness is a beautiful thing because it drives. That's what leaders do. But the question is, who's your driver? What's your driver? What's really driving you? And if we can understand what's driving us, if they could understand, okay, I could probably be a much more effective president if I was bold and had some compassion and love. And people felt that from me, because people obviously care what you know and they know that you care. And some people feel that, but some people don't. But when you're, being a celebrity, I work with some incredible talent that everybody would know. And the public eye is no joke. You are it doesn't matter if you're a saint. You will be demolished. That's why in order to be famous, your nervous system has to feel safe enough to be seen by millions of people to some extent. But I'm not even like huge yet, but I get stuff on social media. But I've had to get my nervous system on board with it, right? But you work with these people, and when you're attacked and you're in a fear-based state now, you're in defense, and now you're coming at the world in this way, like it's a sucky, hard place to be. So part of me has compassion, and part of me is like, let's do the work. Like, let's do the freaking work, because you would be a far more effective leader if you did. And you have all these people surrounding them that it's probably not even them, because I could work with them, but the people in fear of this and division, fear divides us. Fear doesn't bring us together, because when I'm afraid and you're afraid, we're in defense. Right? And it sounds so cliche. All we need is love, and let's live in love. It's like, yeah, sure. But if I don't feel safe enough to let my guard down, whereas if we can get them to feel safe in their nervous system, to actually, not on a conscious level, but on a subconscious level, know that they'll get their results even better if they approach it differently, then that's what would happen.
That's incredible. Hey, let's do an event together.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I would love that.
Yeah, we'd love to do that.
That would be
very
awesome.
Cool.
We could, I without question, we could bring in some great people. I would love to take people through an understanding of what this is. There are some things that when I explain them, Clint, like I'm not even exaggerating. I've had multiple. I've been really fortunate and really blessed. Like I am so grateful for what I do. I really am so grateful. Like I'm really grateful. I left a lot of stability initially to do this. I gave up equity in a multi-billion-dollar company that I got offered to start all over and literally go to nothing, because this calling, it's a calling for me. It's a mission. And when I explain it to certain people, certain elements of this, it's crazy how much shame is released, because they're like, I'm not messed up. this is just my body doing what it is, and I could reprogram it, and there's hope. What the heck? And when I do this work, not only does it help me, but I get to have a better family life. I get to have more peace. What the heck? Dude, if you guys knew me, man, I was telling my wife, like, it's funny, man, this is the creative in me. You know, I get emotional. I'm like, man, I am so grateful. Like Garrett was saying earlier, it's like, man, we're talking about like, you know, being somebody that like, oh, you're resilient and you do this. I wrestled for this. I wrestled. I had to be conscious when I was telling about this, just even one situation, my mother got diagnosed with cancer when I was a director at the real estate gig. And I remember sitting in the hospital for 12 hours. There was one day I was just when the morning lets you until you get out. My mom went down to 70 pounds, my hero. And I remember looking at her saying, man, that's going to be me one day. What do I want to say? I'm not going to want to say like, oh, cool. I had the Ocean View office in Santa Monica, California. And like, I love my work. I love my boss. I love my people, but it wasn't my calling. And I said, you know, what do I really want to say? And I wrestled with it though, like holding her hand when she died. I knew at that moment, I said, you know, talk about unblending from your emotions. I was feeling sad and angry and relieved she wasn't suffering, all the emotions at the same time. But I paused and then I looked at my mom and I said, in my mind, I said, Henry, whatever decision you make now, because I understood heightened emotion, the decision you make will stick with you for the rest of your life, because the greater the emotion, the greater the wiring. I looked at my mom and I said, Mom, I'm going to honor your life with how I live mine. And it's pivoted my life. It's pivoted me. It's why I'm here in one sense of the word, because I made a decision. I was going to go through it. I might as well grow through it. I couldn't control the situation, the serenity prayer. God grant me the peace, the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. I couldn't change that. The courage to change the things that I can. Henry. And the wisdom to know the difference. I had to give up and trust what I couldn't control. It's those moments, those hard decisions that we make, that we say they're hard, but they're harder not to make, because then you have to live with the indecision for the rest of your life. It's the wrestle. It's the work. It's the obsessive study. I do this because Henry needs it too. You know, and I'm so grateful to know that there is hope. I'm so grateful to know there are principles of healing. I'm so grateful to know that literally we can change the world. And if people are watching and there's a desire that you have, I think the one thing I love about this area, this Silicon Slopes, to what you guys have created, there is a clear mission and purpose to make things better than they were. What a gift. I came here from LA knowing I needed to be here. Do you know Lindsey Sterling, the violinist?
Yeah.
We were going to do an event together for youth around mental health. And I was looking at different venues, and my buddy who lives out in Holiday was like, hey, you want to come stay with me for the summer? My lease was up in LA. I was like, yeah, sure. So I came for the summer, and I was like, there are some amazing souls in this place. And the cost of living is way better. And I was like, and there's a lot of, you could feel the movement, and I felt called to be here. And man, you guys are just beautiful, man. What you guys are doing here at Silicon Slopes and what people are doing in Utah, what a blessing to be in a place with so many good people that are out using their talents. Like, look at all these business people, the initiatives that are doing. And even the people that are like trying to take and do, they're operating in fear. You need to have compassion and boundaries, both, right? Like, you need both. You can't have boundaries without compassion. You can't have compassion without boundaries, or else it's a mess, right? But if you look at everybody, you're like, man, I literally feel this. And maybe this is why I feel inspired to bring the higher love experience that I want to bring to Utah, and why we're bringing all these leaders from around the world to Utah. And I'm in conversations, and this is like way premature for me to probably say publicly, but with Will.i.am's team about this project that we want to do, and how to bring that technology they're doing here and combining it with all the stuff we're doing. I really believe that we can make a difference in the world. I really do. I think that there's going to be a pivotal thing that can come out of this place that can be a standard for the world. And we have the leadership, we have the care, we have the heart. And I think if we just rallied around it in the right way, we can put things together like the iPhone did. And that's what I see Utah kind of doing. It's like you take the video, you take the calls, you take the emails, you take everything, and you put it into one, and you have one vision and purpose, and you do it the right way. You will revolutionize this industry. I'm working with this one guy who specializes in healing collective trauma. So he'll go to places like that have been hit through the Holocaust or hit through, these regions that have been in war. And he specializes in how do you help heal, or like racism or whatever that is. How do you heal collective trauma? And we're talking, he goes, Henry, and I told him about the vision that I had. It was total vision, man. Like, this was bigger than me, and I'll have some crazy stories behind it. But he goes, why don't we start and really concentrate it with where you're saying, and let's take that and let's stamp it across the world. I really believe, you guys, I believe that this is the place we could do it. I really do. I think we have leaders. I think we have heart. I think we have resources. And I think there's a capacity of collaboration here that you don't see anywhere else.
Let's do it, man.
Yeah.
We're in. Yeah, let's do an event for sure. How do people get in touch with you? I think that's important.
Yeah. So henryammar.com, henryammar.com, or Instagram, Henry Ammar. I have a podcast called Making It Happen with Henry Ammar. And if you see it right there, that guy, you can reach out to him anytime. But if I could support in any way, man, this is my purpose. I'm in Utah probably half the time, when I'm not traveling or not in a little farm town in Nevada with my wife. And so, but thank you for having me. Thank you for everything. Seriously, like, I mean this sincerely. Like, thank you for all you guys are doing.
Yeah,
like,
thank you.
Like, I feel the heart behind it.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
So really, I'm grateful to be a part of this and to witness in your example and inspiration. So I appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Henry. Who do we have tomorrow?
We have Jenny Groberg, founder and CEO of Book Smarts Accounting and Bookkeeping.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone. Get in touch with Henry and stay tuned for maybe we will be announcing an event soon with Henry. That was incredible. See everybody tomorrow.
Yeah.